Hey everybody, how's it going? We are live. If you're listening live right now, let us know that you can hear us. Just to make sure we're doing our job correctly today. Your Ben Joravsky Show for Tuesday, April 13th with a mystery guest. Oh, he's on the line right now. Oh, I gave some of it away. He is on the line right now. Who will it be? Who will it be? Oh my God, get the bong out. Okay. Your Ben Joravsky Show for Tuesday, April 13th with a mystery guest is just moments away. But before we do this, all right, everybody can hear us. Cool. We're in business. Let's thank our sponsors. Sponsors like SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. The Chicago Federation of Labor sponsors, as well as Chicago Reader. ChicagoReader.com for all things there is to know the city of Chicago. Where to go, what to do, what to eat, what to drink, how to think politically, and so much more. If you're a clueless Chicagoan, get a clue. ChicagoReader.com and subscribe. Also, ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky. Jorav as in victory, SKY. You go to that website, not only will you see an endless archive of Ben Joravsky episodes, over 900 episodes, people. We are freaks. How have we done that many episodes in the span of 2 years? I don't know, but we did it, and you can listen to all of them. ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky. And you can be a Ben head. That's right. That's what we call avid listeners of the Ben Joravsky Show. If you want to support the Ben Joravsky Show, ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky. Become a Ben head. It is a 3-tier system. You can either be in the alley, the avenue, or you can be living large on Benny Boulevard. That's true. Ben's living large on Benny Boulevard. Our mystery guest is living large on Benny Boulevard. Are you? ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky. And you'll even get a deal on the latest book from Ben Joravsky, his greatest hits. Go check it out. ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky. The Ben Joravsky Show with mystery guest starts now. It is Tuesday, April 13th, and live from downstate and my mom's apartment again, and his attic. This is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, yes, a mystery guest, and Keith Kelleher. And now your host, not a mystery host. No. You know him. It's Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Civil War Tuesday, and here's why. First, good weekend. You have a good weekend, too? Oh, you're in Alton.
Yeah.
Yes.
Went downstate.
Must have been a good weekend.
Yeah, pretty good.
I know from my sources that you spent a good chunk of the week watching WrestleMania.
Oh, WrestleMania weekend. You know, I got to watch it every year.
So to watch WrestleMania, the guy went to Alton. Don't ask questions, ladies and gentlemen. Don't question Dennis. He did what he had to do, and he did it. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I watched News of the World. Damn good Western. Tom Hanks plays this Confederate war veteran. He's a captain for the rebels, making his way across Texas in 1870. He's stopping town to town, reading newspapers wherever he goes. Yes, he entertains people by reading them the newspapers. Where was that job when I could have used it? Now he finds himself in charge of a 9-year-old orphan who he has to deliver back to her family. It's a long story. Watch the movie. It's a good flick. I urge everybody to check it out. The point is, it was a foreshadowing for the week to come, because it's really all about trying to heal the wounds and tame the hatreds and bridge the differences that divide our country. And it's in Texas in the days after the Civil War, and Confederate soldiers have formed bands of vigilantes who are lynching black men and terrorizing the local folks. And the Union soldiers, called Bluecoats, are essentially an occupying army that's tired of being there, and they want to go home. To hell with black people getting lynched. In some ways, it kind of foreshadows the divides of today. They've been on full display all weekend. Trump giving a command performance at a gathering of Republican donors in Florida, lashing out at a Republican who dares to disagree with him. Joe Biden batch of legislators, Republican and Democrat, but really, it's like he's reaching out just enough convince the moderate members of the Democratic Party whose votes he desperately. He desperately needs every single Democratic vote because no matter how many Republicans he brings to the White House, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how much he talks about bipartisanship and the spirit of compromise, he knows he's not going to get one, not one Republican vote. So he's setting up a scene. I'm going to label him to tell Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Kyrsten Sinema, I tried. Now, you'd think that infrastructure, which was the topic on the agenda when the Republicans and Democrats convened in the White House, you would think that infrastructure is the one thing the Republicans and Democrats will agree on. How many moderates came into the show over the last year, building up to the election, going, Ben, you got to look for common ground. Ben, infrastructure, that's the common ground.
Ben, stop being a hippie.
Long, Ben. Everybody drives down roads, but no. There are differences. Great column by Michelle Cottle in Weekend New York Times, a dictionary for polarized times. She goes through a whole bunch of issues, including infrastructure. It talks about what the Democratic definition of infrastructure is and what the Republican definition of infrastructure is. And I'm quoting from her. Infrastructure, as the president and people define it, infrastructure includes everything from the care economy, community colleges, and electric vehicles to job training and investment in domestic manufacturing. That's how Democrats look at infrastructure. Republicans going with the basics, bread and butter, roads, bridges, ports, and nothing more. You know, Republicans.
Hang tight, guys. He'll be back.
What do you care? Infrastructure bill. Trump was talking about community colleges. You were loving it when he said it. When Elon Musk builds electric car companies, you love him. But if a Democrat dares to champion these initiatives, how dare he? Meanwhile, up in Michigan, the Civil War is raging. Republicans have a new strategy to pass an anti-voting bill. It's needed to get around a governor veto because, follow me on this one, folks, in Michigan, you have a Republican legislator and Yes, Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Anti-maskers were arrested and charged with cooking up a scheme to kidnap her. Remember that? They didn't like her masking laws. Thought she was taking away their liberty. Anyway, so what the Republicans are going to do, they want to pass a bill that's every bit as anti-voting as the one passed in Georgia. Because the lesson they learned from the 2020 election is that if you allow black people to vote, Republicans will lose. Instead of reaching out to black voters and trying to convince them to join the Republican Party and vote Republican, what they want to do is limit the black vote. So how to do this? How do you pass a law intended to limit the black vote in a state controlled by a Democratic governor who could veto that legislation? They found a gimmick in the law. So what they do is if the voters themselves propose the bill, it cannot be vetoed by the governor. That's technicality in the laws of Michigan. They're so clever, those Republicans, so cunning. They need to gather 10% of the vote from the last governor's election. That's about 340,000 signatures to ballots. They gather those signatures, and that bill will be introduced in the state legislature. The state legislators who are Republican can't veto it. My suggestion, quick, get Michael Casper up to Michigan. Michael Casper is the diabolically clever election lawyer that Michael Madigan, yes, Michael Madigan and the state Democratic Party used to boot Nittlesem Green Party candidates or independents off the ballots and protect the incumbency of Madigan's caucus members. Now, you were the one always railing against Michael Casper and Michael Madigan. Yes, I was. I've kind of flipped on this one, ladies and gentlemen. When I'm up against these Republicans who want to take voting rights away from black people, I don't know. I kind of miss Madigan. Can we bring the Mad Dog back? At least just send him up to Michigan? He'd show him how to fight. By the way, MAGA, please use that recording and send it out to fire up your troops. You could say that lefty commie, old hippie in his attic. He let out the secret. He loves Michael Madigan. Anyway, here's hoping that Dems in Michigan have a lawyer as diabolically clever as the Republicans they're up against, so they can challenge the validity of those signatures and get that law booted off the ballot. Oh, I can hear my fair map brothers and sisters right now. Oh, Ben, come on. It's just not fair. You can't beat the Republicans by being Republicans. You have to win by truth, justice, and the American way. That sound you hear in the background is not just the train roaring by, ladies and gentlemen. No, that sound is this. That's the evil cackle of the diabolically clever Republicans winning again. We got a great show today, everybody. Keith Kelleher. Yes, that Keith Kelleher, a legend in union organizing, healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. One of the sponsors of our show. Keith built that union or helped build it. We're not going to show him any privileges, D. Just because his union's a sponsor of this show, we'll be tough on him, all right? Get that alligator out there. Keith's going to break down. Keith's really smart. He organized unions. He built them up from the bottom. Or for the early days, getting those signatures, getting for union elections. We're going to take the deep dive of what went down in Alabama with the Amazon attempt to organize an Amazon warehouse. Did not work out well for the union, to put it mildly. And there's a lot of lessons that activists, lefties, union members can learn from what went down in Alabama. I'm not going to claim it's a moral victory, ladies and gentlemen. In my humble opinion, we'll see what Keith has to say. I think the unions really messed it up. And they were outfoxed by Jeff Bezos. Get Michael Casper down to Alabama. They'll show him how to run a union election. Actually, I don't know if Michael Casper knows it. Michael Casper at that point is just sort of like a symbol of a clever Democratic lawyer. Anyway, so we'll have Keith Kelleher on in a little bit. But before we do that, our mystery guest, who's been very patiently sitting here while I've been talking about all these issues of the day, a mystery guest with a mystery complaint.
Oh, who could it be? Oh my God, listeners are on the edge of their seat. Who is the mystery guest?
So, Dennis, let me ask you this. Should I introduce the mystery guest, or should I ask my mystery guest to introduce himself?
What do you should have had that pre-show meeting. Let our guest introduce himself, I guess.
You know, it's a smashing the fourth wall in the Ben Joravsky Show. We had an extensive pre-show meeting, but this was the one topic we didn't cover. All right, mystery guest, introduce yourself.
Jacob Kaplan, Executive Director of the Cook County Democratic Party. What's up, guys?
Dear friend of the Ben Joravsky Show, has been coming on Ben Joravsky Show for as long as I've been in front of a microphone. He even stayed with me when I got fired for being too lefty. All right, Jacob, you had a complaint? I thought it was a valid complaint. Little complaint. Called me up the other day. God damn you, Ben. No, he didn't say that. So let's go back in time. We'll set it up. All right, Jacob. It was Fridays, the Week That Was segment that Dennis and I do once a week, where we go through the local news. And one of the segments had to do with a vote taken by the Cook County Democratic Party, the ward committee of the Democratic Party, to support State Senator Rob Markwick, another good friend of the show, his proposal to have an elected school board for the city of Chicago. City of Chicago is the only municipality in the state of Illinois, ladies and gentlemen, does not have an elected school board. The mayor of the city of Chicago opposes Markwick's bill, says it's too cumbersome, and most of the business leaders in the city have joined her in this effort. They say, too much democracy spoils things. What we need is a strong central authoritarian figure running the schools and dispatching orders and telling those teachers, shut up and get back in those classrooms. I'm just summarizing the arguments the other side gives, Jacob. And so in discussing the vote, I said, Tony Preckwinkle, chair of the Cook County Democratic Party, might have been sticking a needle in Lori Lightfoot a little bit. And that's when Jacob said, no, Ben, you got it wrong. Explain what I got wrong and get it right. Go ahead, Jacob.
You got it wrong, Ben. This is part of the democracy of the Cook County Democratic Party. We have a new committee. It's called the Policy Committee. It was started last year. It's chaired by Anthony Quezada, the committee person of the 35th Ward, who happens to be a Democratic Socialist as well. And his committee met on March 22nd, and they had a agenda of a number of issues. And one of the issues that was brought up by somebody at the meeting was, why don't we endorse the elected school board bill? Because that was the day that it had passed out of the House committee in the Illinois General Assembly. This was Delia Ramirez's House bill. So I wasn't at this meeting. Chair Preckwinkle wasn't at this meeting. It was put to the floor for a vote. It passed unanimously, and that set the path in motion for us voting on it at our meeting last week as a full party. So this is something new the party is doing. We, in January, also had a vote out of this policy committee to endorse $2,000 checks and send letters to our representatives in Washington endorsing that idea. So it's something new. We're getting more involved in policy, and that's where this idea came out of organically. It wasn't some sort of fight between people in power. It was just about democracy and people wanting the party to take more of a stance on issues. And that's what happened. And as you saw, the elected school board bill was very popular when it came up for a vote in the party and passed almost unanimously. So,
all right, now, fair enough. I sit corrected. But what actually I said, I'll get your response to this, was in so many ways, Tony Preckwinkle was kind of needling Lori Lightfoot a little bit, because Lori Lightfoot campaigned as a supporter of an elected school board. And it was very important for Lori Lightfoot in the 2019 campaign. And folks, true confession time. Jacob knows this. I voted for Lori Lightfoot. He knows that. I've confessed this to him many times. He voted for Tony Preckwinkle, so we don't always see eye to eye and everything. But it was very important for Lori Lightfoot to establish her credentials as a quote-unquote progressive, a word I don't like to use, Jacob, because I think it's misused, but let's just use it. That's what everybody in Chicago calls themselves these days, progressives. And so so it was used by her to establish her credentials as a progressive. And then, of course, once in office, she's like, against the bill. It says that Mark Wick has introduced and Delia Ramirez has introduced, says it's too unwieldy, wants to change it, and it's stalling it and using her clout with Don Harmon, a Democrat, by the way, in the state Senate to block it. So when the Democratic Party of Cook County votes to endorse the bill that Mayor Lori Lightfoot is opposing, do you or do you not agree that it is sort of a way of kind of like sticking the needle in and reminding the world that Lori Lightfoot has not made good on her promise to have an elected school board? Jacob Kaplan, respond.
Well, I see it as supporting what 90% of Chicago voters supporting what in a recent Crain's poll, I think something like 75% of the business executives in Chicago support. And again, ultimately, this was a vote of the party, which is made up of 50 ward and 30 suburban township committee people elected by voters. The Democratic Party is about democracy, and it's hard to argue against an elected school board. Again, like what you said, every other municipality in the city, in the state has it. In the state. And, this is something that people have been fighting for years and years, and it's time for it to happen. There are great bills out there in the House and Senate. And the party felt it was time to support them. So, that's just, we wanted to provide extra, help to this effort to pass these bills because we feel democracy is important as the Democratic Party.
Fair enough. And by the way, I appreciate having made that little comment, that snarky comment on Friday. I do appreciate the fact that the Democratic Party is going to get involved in policy issues. I could see it being a troublesome thing, but I wish they were involved. I go back in time, Jacob. I'm thinking back of all the initiatives that a mayor has launched where we could have used some criticism or critiques from the Democratic Party, and they were absent. Or they just went along with it, or because they didn't get involved with policy issues, we didn't hear a peep from them. The one that pops to mind, the most obvious one, is selling the parking meters, which gets into the larger issue of privatization. So if that were at the forefront right now, do you think it's possible that the Cook County Democratic Party could take a stand on something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we could take a stand against privatization. I think that's something that a lot of people in the Democratic Party believe in. So again, this is something that's new. We just started this last year, and we'll see where it goes. But we want to be helpful and take stands on policy positions because I think that's what draws people to the Democratic Party is our stances and our positions. So we should do more of that, is our feeling.
Well, I agree with you on that point. I could see a lot of forceful debate. I could see a lot of dissension. There were 5 committeemen. Let's just point this out. 5 committeemen. It was just the Chicago committeeman that got to vote on this. Am I correct on this?
No, all of them did. But we had
the suburbanites.
Yeah.
So
we had
my hometown of Evanston.
Yes, your hometown of Evanston voted for it. Yes.
Who's the committeeman from Evanston these days?
Eamon Kelly.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
I just forgot that. And it was just a momentary freeze. So, all right.
That's all good.
So I sit corrected. Now, before I let you go on your merry way, I got to ask you. I'm feeling kind of nostalgic about Michael Joseph Madigan these days, and this is so ironic, given that all I did was complain about him throughout the '90s and into the Steve Brown, if he's listening to this, is just shaking his head, going, "This guy is just too weird to believe." Steve Brown is Michael Madigan's longtime press spokesperson, and I was always battling Madigan and Casper, and just they were always frustrating lefties like me. But I don't know. When I watch what's going down in Michigan, I feel a little nostalgic because I just wish the Democrats in Michigan, I don't know if they do or don't, would have somebody as cunning, as clever as Michael Madigan. Do you find yourself ever, Jacob Kaplan, missing the days of Michael Joseph Madigan?
I mean, interestingly, he is still the 13th Ward Committee person in the party. So it's the last office he holds. So he's still technically one of our 80 committee people. But I mean, I'll just say this. I think, and we at our meeting last week had we also had a presentation from the new speaker, Chris Welch, and everyone was very impressed and thought, it was a breath of fresh air with the new speaker and his priorities that are going to be coming up. So I think generally, I mean, I agree with you. It'd be great. We need good strategists in the Democratic Party and good people that are able to get Democrats elected in states like Michigan and other Midwestern states. So I agree with you there. I think that certainly over Mike Madigan's long career, he had many successes, but obviously there were downsides as well. So, I'm excited about the new day in the Illinois General Assembly with new leaders in the House and Senate. If you'd asked me, 2 years ago, even, I'd be like, there's going to be a new Senate president and a new House speaker in 2 years. I'd be like, no way. So the new leadership is exciting, and it's, I'm very excited to see where we go as a state. But, I do agree with you. We need these kind of brilliant minds in politics, especially in other states across the Midwest, to get more Democrats elected. And Michigan, certainly, as you mentioned, is example number one. But of course, that all goes back to gerrymandering and the way districts are drawn and the way Republicans have been able to hijack that process. And, I'm not sure there's an easy way out of that right now.
Yeah. All right, Jacob, thanks so much for stopping in. And I will be watching the Democratic Party of Cook County to see if they do any more of these policy initiatives. And if they do, I will champion them. And if they don't do any more initiatives, I'm going to come back and go, isn't that interesting that I'm going to bring you back out and go, Jacob, isn't that interesting that the only initiative.
Come by anytime, Ben.
All right. Thank you very much. A good friend of the show, Jacob Kaplan. Jacob, get back to the law books. He's studying to be a lawyer, ladies and gentlemen.
Will do.
All right. Take care. Thanks so much, Jacob Kaplan. Thanks for listening to the show as well. All right. That's Jacob Kaplan with an explanation, clarification, correction, if you will. Dennis and I are going to take a brief break. And when we come back, Keith Kelleher from SEIU will be with us. Well, he's retired from SEIU. We're going to break down the Amazon vote in Alabama, give you the pros and cons of that initiative. We'll be right back after this.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, and so much more. ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky or wherever else you download podcasts. You can always send us an email, BennyJShow@gmail.com. You can reach us on social media @BennyJShow, BENNY, the letter J Show. And we have a phone number. Yes, it's true. 708-658-4788. 708-658-4788. Call the Ben Joravsky Show. I mean, we're not going to answer, but leave us a voicemail and we'll play that thing. And now, the list of things that you can buy at the Chicago Reader store at chicagoreader.com. Things to wear like Chicago Reader hats, t-shirts, bandanas, and face masks. Things for your daily life like the Chicago Reader camping mug, Chicago Reader tote bags, and a Chicago Reader reporter's notebook. Things for you to read like our Reader recipes, the Chicago Reader 420 Companion, our Chicago Reader Best of book series from journalists Maya Dukmasova, Mike Sula, Ben Jarofsky, and Lior Galil, the Chicago Reader coloring book, and the Chicago Reader Stay Home puzzle. Find the Chicago Reader store at chicagoreader.com and show your support for the nation's first free weekly newspaper since 1971.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone, make sure the kids hear words. Play the radio. Play the radio.
I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit, is what I think. If you think we
No offense, fuck you then. Who are you to tell me I'm full of shit?
All right, commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Jarofsky Show, live from downstate Illinois and Ben's attic.
Yes, when the results from the Amazon unionization attempt in Alabama came in, I knew I had to reach out to Keith Kelleher, good friend of mine, good friend of my show, founder and president, former president, I should say, of SEIU Healthcare, Illinois and Indiana. And yes, if you recognize that name, they are a sponsor of the show, but we're not going to go easy on Keith just because he sponsors our show, all right? We're not going to go easy on him. No gimmies on the Ben Jarofsky Show. Keith, would you like a pizza or anything? How about a back massage? All right, Keith, thanks for coming on the show. We were texting so much. By the way, before we take this deep dive, I urge everybody to check out Jane McElvee's, McLevy's. I always mess up her name because I flip letters around, but she wrote an excellent analysis in The Nation. And it was very provocative. And Keith and I have been talking about it for a while and texting back and forth about it, about what went down in Alabama. So if you want to further explore this issue, and I think it's a very important issue, Keith, then I urge everybody to check out Jane's article in The Nation. She's a really good reporter of union matters, labor issues, et cetera. All right, Keith, let's start at the outset. And folks may not know the specifics a little bit. Talk about what the union was attempting to do in Alabama with the Amazon warehouse and why it's so important that they succeed. So go ahead, start with that.
Well, Amazon is the largest, retailer, obviously online retailer in the world, and the richest company. They say it might be the first trillionaire, I guess, company, and he might be the first trillionaire owner. And so it's a huge effort to organize a company like that with unlimited resources, and it just shows how much brute power the corporations have in labor organizing. And the workers wanted to organize. I had heard that they were actually inspired by Black Lives Matter activists around the country and saw what was happening there and wanted to do the same in their warehouse and to get the freedom of assembly and the freedom to have a union. And obviously Amazon came in and crushed them.
Yeah. I think the actual vote, and I'm doing this, I should have written it down. I think it was 2/3. Am I correct, Keith? Like 2/3 voted no. Did I have that right?
Yeah, it was like 1,700 to 700 or something like that.
Okay.
All
right. somewhere. So it was a crushing loss.
Mm-hmm.
50.1 would have been successful. They needed over 50% of the vote to be successful.
50 plus one.
50 plus one. Yeah. All right. So immediately when there was an attempt to organize the workers at this warehouse in Alabama, Amazon pointed out, well, we pay $15 an hour, which has been the mantra for activists and leftists and labor organizers for years. So we pay the $15 an hour, and we have health care for our employees. And so a lot of folks in this country immediately said, well, why do you need a union if you're already getting $15 an hour in healthcare? So Keith, explain that. Why do you need a union?
Well, you can see even in the Amazon warehouses where they, first of all, what they say many times isn't true the reality on the on the shop floor, and so even if they were paying 15 and did have health insurance, the working conditions are unbelievable. They are unbelievably archaic and brutal. I mean, they track your every move. You're not allowed to use the restroom. Many people are wearing Pampers. The speed up is unbelievable, and the turnover is heavy in that industry, which also might have led to the problems of the list of how many employees actually work there. There were all different, numbers in the beginning. Oh, it was 5,800, it was 6,000. And then when the election actually came down, actually, if you look at the numbers, only about 2,500 voted. And the Excelsior list, which is the list that's how the labor board calls the list of employees, the Excelsior list, was about 3,500. So it seemed to me that what I think was going on was that Amazon was padding that list. And that's very common for corporations to do that, to give you a bad list, to pad the list, to make the union work overtime, house visit a lot more people that they have to, mail to a lot bad addresses and things like that. And so that struck me that that list may have been padded with a lot of people who actually had quit because the turnover is so huge in that industry. So and especially in Amazon's warehouses.
So this is exceedingly important, ladies and gentlemen. The first step in a unionizing effort is to figure out who you are unionizing. So you need to know how many people they are and who they are. All right. And as I was saying, McElvey in The Nation was not easy on the organizing union. She was very critical of the organizing union because, as she put it, and she makes a very compelling case, Keith, they stumbled at this absolutely essential point, the outset, knowing the number of I'm laughing because it's so basic. I'm sure it's a lot harder than it sounds, but it's so basic. You got to know how many people are in your unit. So you need to know if your goal is 50.1, 50 plus 1, you need to know what that represents. So what could
if you're going in up against Amazon, you better bring your A game, and you better be able to actually put on a great fight. Now, on the other hand, first of all, I want to say, reading what that campaign was like and the pressure they put on those workers, first of all, I think we all need to thank those 700 primarily Black workers who voted yes in such an onslaught. Okay, that's number one. Number two is I'm hoping that the union has a plan for afterwards now, right? That there's been so many, according to the news reports, unfair labor practice charges, which are charges that the union and the company can file against each other for unfair conduct during an election. And I'm hoping that that will spur even more perhaps congressional hearings on the PRO Act. The PRO Act is before Congress right now, which would make it easier for workers to organize. And it just shows, this whole campaign shows how stacked it is against workers and how hard it is to win. But you can win. That's my message here, that you can win these elections. And actually, Jane is one of the best practitioners of an NLRB model. We're going into an election, how you know what your list is, how to build an organization. And that seems to be the key thing, is building organization before you go into such a fight like this. And again, we'll have to see, if you look at the news reports, it's unclear how much organization was built by the union going into it. But regardless, I just want to take my hat off to those union organizers and those workers who had the guts to stand up and now hopefully have enough ammunition to go after this company, because this is not the end. This is like the beginning of a huge fight with this corporation that other Amazon warehouses are organizing, other workers are organizing, and I encourage them to organize and to build organization on the job. If you're going to go into an NLRB drive, you got to be able to win under those rules, right? But there's other ways you can win too, by building organization and acting like a union, and not going through the NLRB.
All right, let's take a moment now to explain that, because I know what you're talking about, but I don't know if all of our listeners do. So let's distinguish. What's an NLRB drive? Go ahead.
The National Labor Relations Board was passed in the 1930s. The National Labor Relations Act was passed, set up the National Labor Relations Board, which job was to hold these representation elections. Many would argue that it was set up because there was so much activity going on the ground. Sit-down strikes, mass occupations of factories, in some cases, workers taking over their cities with the Oakland General Strike, the Minneapolis Twin Cities General Strike. And the Labor Board, some people argue, was started in order to make a process. Workers were winning, and this was to use to slow them down, I guess what some people would say, okay? But it's a good thing that the National Labor Relations Act passed, because it set up a process where people could organize, not be shot and killed, not be, run out of town on a rail, not be fired. Those are all great things that the National Labor Relations Act set up and the NLRB set up. So that's an NLRB election, where you go through this process where the Labor Board comes out, sets up a voting booth, just like when you go to vote in a regular election. People vote yes or no, the ballot says yes or no, and that's it. More yeses than nos, you win, okay? A non-NLRB election is when you build organization the old way, right? And they're not mutually exclusive. It's not saying that, I'm not one that says you shouldn't go through the NLRB. If you can win, go through the NLRB. But there's also another process, which how many of our unions started. Teachers unions, public employee unions, some of the largest unions we have today were started by workers just organizing on the job, signing each other up as members, and moving issues on the job around pay, dignity and respect, hours of work, working conditions. And that's what I am proud that we were able to do in my local. I mean, we started our local in 1983 with 7 workers in a church in downtown, the basement of United Methodist Temple. 7 workers got together and voted to organize a union. 25 years later, there were 70,000 workers in that union, some of the lowest paid workers in the world, in the United States, home care workers, child care providers. They decided they had no rights under the National Labor Relations Act, under State Labor Relations Act, under any laws, because in the 1930s, domestic workers, home care workers, child care providers were forbidden, mostly because they were Black, to organize. Agricultural workers were forbidden to organize under the National Labor Relations Act. And just like Cesar Chavez, just like those 7 brave home care and child care providers in 1983 who sat in a church basement and voted to organize their union, they went out and they signed up people as members. They took action on the job. They did direct action. They did anything and everything they could to win their union. And 20 years later, they finally were able to pass a law that allowed them to organize their own union. So that's another way you can organize a union. And it is faster in many ways, but none of it's easy. A lot of it takes time. And that's what I see as the lesson here, that, I hate to say it, but whenever I see these big campaigns where people are saying, XYZ union is going into the South and we're going to organize the South, right? If they do it the right way and build organization, it can be done. I think a lot of times, though, people are using the NLRA and NLRB route, and that might not be the way to go when going after such a huge corporation like Amazon, until you've built the power to win on the job. And that means strikes, that means sit-ins, but it also means passing legislation. If you're not strong enough to strike or to take direct action, you can pass legislation that increases things one at a time. There were many years when we went to Springfield and we asked for a 5% raise, a 10% raise, $1. You know what I mean? We slowly built it up so that people who were making $1 an hour in 1983 will now be at $18 an hour in the next 3 years. People who had no health insurance, tens of thousands of home care workers and child care providers are now covered under a union health insurance plan, right? And they built it over the years by building organization. Sometimes we went to the National Labor Relations Act and we won the election. Sometimes we didn't.
Well, you could not help me out of here. I don't want people to come away from this thinking something that's not accurate. If the workers at that warehouse facility, the Amazon warehouse facility in Alabama, wanted to form a union, they have to go through the NLRB process. Am I correct? There's no other way to literally form a union than by having these elections, by getting the people to sign cards saying they want to have an election, then having the actual election where you need the 50+1 to form the union. You have to go through that. There's no other way around that right now in Alabama. Am I correct? Or is there another way around?
No, they could decide to build organization until they're strong enough to win the election, right? Which I think was Jane's point, right? Was that, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but just reading that article, I know, well, just so you know, there's a lot of other articles out there too. Great article in Jacobin. There was a couple other articles about it. That, you know, if you take the time to build the organization until you can win, that might be, hey, why are we just concentrating on Bessemer? Now they are a huge company and there's, you know, hundreds of warehouses around the country. But just like the auto workers in the 1930s, they didn't go after every single factory. They went after the most important factories, right? And I don't want to, you know, what do they call it, Sunday morning quarterback this either, right? I wasn't there. I have a lot of respect for the people who were there. But I'm just saying, if you're going to go in NLRB, bring your A game and go to win as an NLRB, right? But if you're not going to go to NLRB, you need to build up organization and do actions on the job to improve the conditions, to say, hey, to their neighbors and to everyone, hey, look what Amazon is doing over here. You know, by the way, we can't go to the bathroom. You know, those issues alone, I think you can win on those issues many times. When we first started organizing home care workers, the minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. The state of Illinois was paying them $1 an hour because they were not covered under the National Labor Relations Act. We took that right to the state, and it took us 3 years. We got a $2.35 an hour raise, plus a 5% raise on top of that, plus back pay. And that showed what the state was doing, was running a home care plantation of home care workers making $1 an hour, taking care of our senior citizens and our people with disabilities. I think people are ready for that, you know, to hear, well, Amazon ain't exactly great. Hey, yeah, they got, you know, these great electric trucks that bring your little packages to your house, in which, hey,
yeah,
I'm not being holier than thou either. Everyone uses, a lot of people use Amazon, right? But there's also a side of Amazon that needs to change. And that's what these workers are saying. They are racist, they are classist, and this is what they're doing to us, you know, and this needs to change.
All right. So let's talk about what it takes to change Amazon. Let's get into the weeds a little bit. And I hear what you're saying. Don't want to be the Monday morning quarterback. I've never organized a union in my life. Well, that's actually not true at the Reader. I was part of the group that formed the union, but it was a heck of a lot easier.
Right on, Ben. Right on. Shut them down.
It was a heck of a lot easier forming a union at the Reader, all right, where they were more or less benevolent dictators that we were dealing with, than dealing with Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, who's got a production company, Amazon. They have their own streaming network. They're producing movies. All these Hollywood actors that go, oh, we really love you. Thank you, Jeff Bezos and Amazon. It's really hard. Okay, I understand that. It's a lot harder than
but that's what Bezos is saying too, though. He's saying, hey, I'm paying 15. I'm doing health insurance, right? You know, he's trying to project that, like, hey, I'm a benevolent dictator, right? But he's not.
No,
he's a scuzzbag.
Can I just say something? Jeff Bezos, I've seen benevolent dictators. I dealt with them when we were organizing the rear. You're no benevolent dictator. Oh, that's Lloyd Benston.
I'm just saying.
He's the only guy old enough to
That's
remember
why he
that.
bought the Washington Post. You know?
Yes, he bought the Washington Post. And then they're like, oh, he's got to be liberal, Ben. He bought the Washington Post. He produced Transparent. All right. Anyway, so what I'm reading about union organizing, and I'm reading in particular about Alabama, the advantage is all with Bezos. He's already the world's richest guy. He owns
Maybe
Amazon.
we should just go. Maybe we should just go into the mechanics. Look at the election.
Yes.
They were holding daily captive audience meetings. So
They being Amazon.
Amazon, right.
Yes.
So Amazon, just for people who don't know, a captive audience meeting is just as it sounds. You have to attend the meeting. You have no choice in the matter. It is a mandatory meeting. You are paid to attend the meeting, and they just play videos, have speakers, and beat the crap out of you. That's number one. They are also allowed, even though technically it's illegal, they are allowed to ask you your sympathies about the union and why you think the union might be a bad idea, why the company thinks the union is a bad idea. So they can also have individual meetings with you. So just to give you an idea, I organized a McDonald's, was part of a group of people organizing McDonald's in the early 80s in Detroit, okay? The first thing when we filed for an election with 160 workers in 3 McDonald's stores, McDonald's did was they brought in a crew from Hamburger University out in Oak Brook. These are not nice people. These are former psychological operations U.S. Special Forces who've been trained to torture, maim, and kill, but also to do it nice and to interrogate. They brought these folks in and they systematically interrogated every one of those 160 workers to find their sympathies and to work on them. And they would do things like, hey, Jim, just doing a meeting, wanted to see what you think about this union thing going on. A lot of people have been asking us. We heard you had some questions, so we just thought we would ask you. And then they would work family networks. A lot of people have family, right, who work at various places. So they say, well, hey, your sister Jane, she's getting like 25 hours now, right? And you're getting like 30, 35 hours. Once the union comes in, we can't guarantee you that you're going to keep getting those 25 and 35 hours. I just want to make sure you know that once we go into an organizing drive, and once we have, say the union wins, everything's up for grabs. Then it's all negotiated. I can't guarantee that you or your sister, and don't you have a cousin who works here? Yeah, I can't guarantee that your cousin could even keep their job or their hours. Matter of fact, some unions, they tell us who to hire. We would have to use the union's hiring. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
They skirt it, and they just keep working on people like that, and then they just, it is totally unfair. It's like saying before you went into the voting booth, you as a citizen in the United States, you had to sit through 2 weeks paid mandatory meetings for the sitting president, for Trump, to meet with you and to discuss you. And I guarantee you they brought in, big time people, if not Bezos himself, right? At the McDonald's that we were organizing, who they brought in? Earl Campbell, NHL running back, all-pro, rookie of the year that year. They brought him to a party, a McHappy Day party. I'm not kidding you. This is true. I had to live through it, Ben. McHappy Day party, where everybody, and they had a McHappy Day party raffle, where everybody got $50. Nobody got less than $50, excuse me. Some people got more, but nobody got less, okay? And we estimate they spent over $1 million on that campaign to beat the union. Now, you say, oh, well, that was McDonald's, but Bezos. There was a press report that Bezos was offering people $2,500 at Bessemer, Alabama, in the warehouse to resign, get a $2,500 bonus, and they wouldn't vote. I think that's a bribe.
Hey, man.
Technically, but just so you know, technically, they are not allowed to bribe.
Yeah.
Right? And they will try to paint it as something else. Well, we've always paid bonuses. And if people want to leave, that's just a parting bonus. That's all that is. We always offer that in our company. And it's total crap. It's just always the idea is to break you if they can't break you, buy you off if they can buy you off, scare you if they can scare you, use fear, intimidation, and playing people off against each other. And that's how they won. Oh, and they also kill you with kindness too.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to say something to my Republican brothers and sisters in the state of Alabama and in Georgia as well. You're very upset about people giving bottles of water to voters who are standing in line. You say that's an inducement. Where's that outrage when Jeff Bezos is given $2,500? Just saying, my Republican brothers and sisters, I was looking for unifying themes that could bring us together. All right.
But yeah, I mean, just on the mechanics of the election, those are just some of the things an employer can do.
Yeah, right? And let me just remind you that the union doesn't have access to the employees. This is something that came out in many of the stories, right? And that's just changed in the nation. Many of the stories, they can't go onto the work site. This is how much cloud Amazon.
They're out on the highway.
Yeah, they're on the highway. And they changed the traffic lights so that the cars they would not be a traffic light outside of the parking lot when the employees came out, so they couldn't come up to the cars. That's like a Michael Madigan move. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
There's also some online pictures of the employee break room and lunchroom. Every table had like a vote no, like little, table setting, right?
Yeah.
Every stall in the bathrooms had a vote no thing on the stall. And they also show videos during these meetings, right? Many of them extremely violent, showing the, alleged union violence in strikes and inferring that if this happens here and if the union asks us to do this, and we say no, the union could call a strike. And they never mention that actually, no, workers vote to strike, right? If they want to strike or not. And most unions will not strike unless 75% of the workers vote to strike, right? But they put these ideas in people's head that somehow they make the union as an outside third party, right? And they make it out like they're going to come in here and ruin this beautiful relationship we've had here. Hey, I can hear them now, and this is what they did at the McDonald's. We made some mistakes. Bob should have let you, go to the bathroom, and that's why we fired his ass. They'll fire a couple of supervisors, right? Mm-hmm. And he shouldn't have done that. And that's why I'm glad you guys brought this to our attention, because we're changing now. And this is a new day, without the union, and you're going to get 15. You're going to get health insurance. I mean, that's the kind of power that they have. So if you were voting in the United States and you were required for 2 to 3 months before you go to vote for president to have to sit in meetings with Trump or his, associates and hear this nonstop, and the other candidate couldn't say anything or didn't have the same access, right? That's a lot of power.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, what can you do? I guess my only, final thing on this is that I think this could be the start of something good, right? If there's unfair labor practice charges, if there's congressional hearings, this could lead to passing the PRO Act, which would be a great thing for the PRO Act to pass, right? But at the same time, I think to organize this level of workers, you have to go, and this kind of corporation, you have to build up an organization in those plants on the local level, on the state level, and on the national level. And it takes time, and it's not easy. And that when you're going to go into something like that, you need to do that and not just go with one-offs.
All right, let me ask you this. And I've opined on this question that I'm about to ask you, but I don't think I've ever asked you this question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you this question directly.
Okay.
So you went up against McDonald's that brought in Earl Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Earl Campbell. What a great running back. Houston Oilers battered his brains out, by the way, playing football, and could have used a stronger National Football League Players Union representative protecting him, just saying, I'm really sad to hear that.
They actually condemned him for doing that, by the way, just so you know.
Good. I'm glad they did.
He should not have done that.
He shouldn't have. Probably in his heart of hearts, he knew that as well. All right. So McDonald's fought you and was successful in Detroit, kept you from organizing those.
Well, we actually won the first Burger King and one of the first fast food restaurants in the country to organize, and we actually won a contract, just so you know, just for the record. Right. By the way, there'll be an article about it tomorrow in the Forge magazine. It'll be coming out.
Okay, so you won one with Burger King, you lost one with McDonald's. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
So the point I'm making, Ray Kroc was one of the wealthiest men in the world. He owned McDonald's. And Jeff Bezos, one of the wealthiest men in the world. He owns Amazon. Now, I look at Amazon and all the gazillions and gazillions of dollars of profits they had. They had their big paw out looking for money from the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, to move their headquarters here. And the dummies that run the state and the city were ready to give them the money. All right, let me point that out. Ready to give them the money.
Right.
Why? With all that money, with all that influence, with all that power, he owns the Washington Post. He owns this huge production company. It's got all these Hollywood stars lining up to say, Ben, he'd be fair to Jeff Bezos. Why? Why does Jeff Bezos care if a bunch of employees at a warehouse in Alabama organize a union? The man is still going to be the wealthiest, or well, I think Elon Musk may have slipped ahead of him. So he's either one or two wealthiest men in the world, worth billions and billions of dollars. Keith Kelleher, why does he care? Why is he fighting so hard? Why is he bringing in the special ops team? Why is he changing the traffic lights? Why is he cooking the numbers of people who can vote? Why does he have lawyers lined up, fighting them in court? Why is he fighting this so hard? Go explain.
One word, power. He knows that if they win in Alabama, if they win anywhere in California, if they win here, that will limit his power to be a dictator on the job. And that will limit and curtail some of their oppressive, abusive, racist policies on the shop floor in Alabama, as well as here or anywhere. He knows it comes down to power. For a lot of these folks, it really comes down to power. It's not really, I mean, of course, they love the money, right? But they see that as an end to have total power. And so in our system, in order to have power, he needs to control everything about, or he thinks he needs to control. And he thinks that that's what it takes for him to run his company. And he doesn't want to hear anything else, and that's the same thing that the auto employers, the Henry Ford was just like Bezos, right? And it was when those workers organized that it actually made it a more humane workplace, right? Not saying that auto plants are great places to work, but they are much better than they used to be. Workers are getting living wages. Workers are getting health insurance. They're getting pensions. They're getting time off. They're getting holidays. A lot of those things that people at the Amazon warehouses are not getting. They might say, "Oh, we're getting 15," but that's just a few things compared to paid time off. Any kind of vacation, any kind of sick days. A lot of that stuff, they don't want that at all, because to them that means workers will not be on the job, and they think they have to have this Amazon plantation running 24/7 in order to run their company. And it can be run in a humane manner, but they don't want to hear it.
By the way, I just have to mention one thing that I've been meaning to mention. Is we went on a couple of riffs here and we moved away from it. Yes, the vote was like 1,700 to 700, but there's 400 to 500. What a system. Yeah. There's 400 to 500 votes that were challenged by Amazon.
That's right.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, come on now.
Yeah.
Come on. How is that fair? That's like a Chicago election. Well, I just, I'm not going to let you vote. That's an old Chicago election.
But it's also,
no, it's like, go ahead. Yeah.
It's also an Alabama situation, right? And just like in Georgia, this is voter suppression. That's what this is. This is voter suppression by Bezos to prevent black workers from voting.
Because he knew those 500 voters.
He knew they were yeses. He knew they were yeses.
So you really should say it's 1,700 to 1,200. Just
That's
saying.
right. That's right. And that's a much closer margin. Not to mention, where were the other 2,300? Did they resign to get the bonus? You know what I mean? Were they yeses who resigned? I don't know. I don't know if there were no 50 other 2,300 or not, but that was the number going into this election. Everyone's like, all the press reports of 5,800 voter or ready to vote. And well, what happened to the other 2,300?
Yeah.
Were they just a fiction? Or were they people who took this bonus? I think a lot of stuff is going to come out in the next couple of weeks and days and months, and hopefully before Congress, to pass the PRO Act to show them this is what happens when you have unbridled power and when you have workers have no power under the National Labor Law.
All right, let me ask you this. Those 500 votes that were challenged, those 500 ballots that have been challenged by the Bezos's agents on the grounds that somehow or other they're not eligible to vote in this election. We had a mini version of that, even at my beloved reader when we voted to form our union. They challenged like a couple people. Didn't matter. I was very proud of this, Keith. It was 20-0. Yeah,
Wow.
That's how you organize a union. All right. Anyway,
Slap down, body slam.
So
Union 1, reader 0.
So as a tactician, what would you continue to challenge to get those votes counted, or would you just walk away from it, Keith, and go, well, that
No,
was...
I think I would definitely challenge those votes. I would file all the unfair labor practice charges. I would demand action in Congress. I would demand hearings in Congress. I would demand local hearings, that they come down to hear the workers at that shop. I mean, whatever the union wants to do is what I would do, is actually go and demand that. And I would keep organizing in the other warehouses and the other parts of this whole production logistics system that Amazon has locally and nationally. So I would do and keep organizing, right? I mean, I think that's the big thing, is just don't give up. Let me give you one more example here. My first election was a Burger King. After we won the Greyhound Burger King in downtown Detroit and the Greyhound station by a vote of 25-23, they asked me to organize one on the southwest side. My first election, I thought we were doing good. Yeah, they were beating us up, but I don't know. I think my supervisor, my organizer, head organizer says to me, what's the vote? What's it going to be? I think it's going to be like 18 to like 12. There were like 30 people. Well, it was 25 before. Yeah, but I think, they're hurting us, but they're not. On the day of the election, it was 21-1. I lost.
Whoa.
We got crushed. A year later, those workers contacted us and said, we'd like to organize our union. So we went back and we helped them. Over 80% of the workers, many of them who voted against the union the year before, signed up with the union. We did a recognition action to demand recognition at a Burger King Corporation. It was a corporate store. They refused. We went outside on the sidewalk and picketed and totally shut down business to the company. Then we filed at the labor board for an election. They then sold the store.
God.
They knew we were going to win. We had over 80% on the cards. We had all filed at the labor board. They knew we were going to win. They sold the store to a guy who worked for human resources for the corporation up until like a week before they sold him the store. And the Reagan Labor Board said, oh, that's true. Oh, they showed us the paperwork. We're like, this is BS. And we filed unfair labor practice charges. We won some, we lost some, but on the main argument, we lost the main argument, and they allowed the corporation, the Reagan Labor Board, to sell the store out from under us. And my lesson in that was that we were doing everything, those workers were doing everything they were asked to do. They signed the cards, they asked for recognition, they went to the labor board, and the corporation still went out and sold the store from under us. And what I learned was that you cannot depend on the National Labor Relations Board. And I learned different tactics that I then used when we came here to Chicago to organize with the labor board if you can win, and away from the labor board if you can't, or if you have no rights to organize. And it's not easy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of discipline and time. But over the years, we've built now that local is now the largest union local in the city of Chicago, the largest union local in the state of Illinois, the largest union local in the Midwest of any union, not just SEIU, but any union. And SEIU, which had very few home care workers prior to the organizing be done by these brave workers, now has 600,000 home care and child care providers in their 10 million person union. The largest union, or probably first or second largest union in the country. So that's my lesson, is that keep organizing, don't give up hope. So with those brave workers in Alabama, I'm with you. Let's keep going. I know it feels bad now, but let's pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and go at it again.
Yeah, and I assure everybody that a young Keith Kelleher, just vision young Keith Kelleher, long hair, listen to Bob Seger. Oh, I love Bob Seger.
I did listen. I did like Bob Seger.
Come on, you love Seger. It's 1983. You're in Detroit. What else are you going to be listening to?
I was more of a Motown. I was like I have to say, Ring My Bell at that time was my favorite song. Ring My Bell by Angela Ward. I mean, so don't put me in that Seeger category. I was a dancing kind of guy.
Okay. He is, by the way, unbelievable dancer, Keith Kelleher, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people see Keith Kelleher go, wait a minute, isn't that John Travolta? No, it's Keith Kelleher. All right. So by the way, no, but I was going to say, the difference between me and Keith, there's many differences. One, he's a great dancer. I can't dance at all. But another difference is that I hold grudges for years, Keith. If it was 23-1, the vote against me, and then they came back a year later, and they go, oh, I'd be like, oh, well, look who's here. Oh, where were you when I needed you? Well, union workers. Well, but you didn't do that, did you, Keith?
I was like, well, you're right. It does feel, it's like, I felt like that old B.B. King song, nobody loves me but my mother, and she might be jabbing me too. It's sort of like that. It was like, I thought I had like at least 3 votes, and I lost them around.
One. I love that guy.
That's my point.
Yeah.
The company had so scared and poisoned that environment, that climate, right? That people voted no, right? There was, but then something happened. What happened was that they were trying to grind out everybody who worked there to get rid of all the workers who may have had sympathies for the union. And that's what happened. And those workers said, hold on, and called us back. And then we went back out. We would have won that election overwhelmingly. Yeah. But they're technically not allowed to do that, but they did.
Yeah. The point is you didn't hold a grudge, unlike me.
Right.
All right. We're going to close with this. Mm-hmm. Yes, you've already laid out what the union has to do. It has to go back and organize and try to win over the workers that voted against them, build from whatever strength they have, and move ahead, maybe try other warehouses in Alabama, put pressure on Jeff Bezos, maybe get some of his Hollywood friends to turn against him, whatever. All right. PROACT, you've made reference to legislation that would benefit unions in future organizing efforts.
Right.
How would this particular bill have helped the union organizers in Alabama?
Well, a lot of the stuff that I just described that happened to me at McDonald's and Burger King and the other fast food employers, and also happened with the Amazon workers, would be outlawed. They could not have these captive audience meetings. They could not do a lot of the things that are typical methods of union busters, which, by the way, I think Jane mentions it in her article, the book Confessions of a Union Buster by Martin Levitt.
Yeah.
I would have all your listeners read that book, because he tells it like it was. He reformed and said, I was a hitman for the corporations. And he goes into everything they used to do and all the tricks they did and all the ways that they, legal and illegal, that they used to win union elections. So those kinds of things would be outlawed. Not everything, but most of these egregious techniques and psychological warfare and things like that would be illegal under the PROACT, that they couldn't do it. People would have to be allowed to vote in actually have it's technically a secret ballot now, but they wouldn't be able to campaign like they are. They wouldn't be able to do the interrogations and all those things that I described, they would be outlawed.
Changing the traffic light. No detail was too insignificant for Bezos folks. He changed the freaking traffic light. He had control of the town. You guys complaining about Democratic mayors and cities.
But the other thing I want to make is that even with the changes in PRO Act, it's still not going to be easy to win an LRB election, right? But I would recommend that people look into other methods, study some of the other unions that have organized over the years, including our own, and see how we have grown without the NLRB and without the NLRA. And so, and use those tactics as well, which could eventually grow into huge movements of workers demanding their rights on the job and the right to have a living wage. That's what people want. They want to have what used to be where a working person could actually afford a house, could afford a car, could afford college for their kids, could have a vacation, right? Could have a sick day, things like that. Many workers today, except in the public sector and increasingly not in the private sector, even the large corporations, do not have those rights to have those things because there aren't union contracts that guarantee them, right? So, but that's what people want, and that's what a union can bring, and that's how unionized workplaces are compared to non-union workplaces.
And I'll just remind, I do this all the time, my listeners who are more of like what do they call them? Social progressives. Keith, so they're for environmental regulation. They're for a woman's right to choose. But they're like, Ben, come on now, man, that union stuff getting too far. I'm just saying, guys, you killed the unions in Wisconsin, Trump won. All right. So if you believe in environmental regulations and a woman's right to choose, kind of helps to have unions around, just to have an ally. Just saying, a very pragmatic point of view.
I think he meant lifestyle liberals. Right?
Is that what they're called? Lifestyle
liberal?
Lifestyle.
Or not even liberal. Lifestyle, progressive.
Liberal is like nobody even wants to be called a liberal anymore. Everybody's a progressive. You know what I'm saying? I just dealt with this in a column the other day.
Lifestyle Democrats, some people call them,
What's that?
Some people call them lifestyle Democrats. Some people call them lifestyle Republicans, but although,
there's none. I can't think of any.
Not many left there.
All right, Keith. Thanks so much for taking the time to come and explain this stuff. We'll probably bring you back to a greater conversation on just the notion of collectivization. That's also what Bezos is playing. You're an individual. You're not a part of a union.
But it's so hilarious because the thing that made him so wealthy, right? The thing that is all based on publicly funded research, the internet, that was all, our money, that built up that whole, made the platform for companies like Bezos even to exist, right? So, give me a break on
Keith. I'll come back to it. He came to Chicago and Illinois with his hands out, looking for billions of dollars in handouts. And Mayor Rahm and Governor Rauner were united. And I couldn't find, with very few people willing to speak out against that because that's the power.
We were.
Okay, see, God bless. And only a union that would sponsor a show with Ben Jarofsky would have. Yes, they were. They were one of the few. I remember even so many politicians come into the show and, Ben, there's a lot of jobs.
Yeah, my people need jobs, man.
Anyway, thanks so much, Keith. It's a blast talking to you. And,
thanks for having me.
That's great, Keith Kelleher. He's a legend in the organizing business. And, he tells it like it is. You got to keep fighting it. And it was a trouncing 1,700 to 700. But as I keep saying, there were 500 votes.
That's right.
It was a little closer than Jeff Bezos would probably wanted. And Jeff Bezos learned that old lesson that Chicago Democrats have known so long. It's really easy to win an election if you eliminate the opposition. Not hard to win if you're running alone.
Yeah. Voter suppression.
Voter suppression. Very good. That's Keith Kelleher from SEIU. I'm Ben Jarofsky. I want to thank Jacob Kaplan for coming on the show earlier. That was fun talking to him. His correction, his clarification that show from Friday. I don't know, folks. Listen to it yourself. We had a lot of fun.
ChicagoReader.com or wherever
What's
else. ChicagoReader.com or wherever else you download podcasts. Yes, our guest Keith Kelleher, the live stream chat was feeling Keith. They say bring him back. Ben, we got to bring him back. And quick, who wins in a dance contest? Ben Jarofsky or Keith Kelleher?
Oh, my God. Keith Kelleher. He's a great dancer. He mops the floor with me.
Oh, okay.
They call him KK. He's a great dancer. I've seen, he puts it on his Facebook page, dancing with his wife. I'm a terrible dancer, but in my mind, Dennis, oh my God. In my mind, I'm Fred Astaire.
And I'm pretty sure you're the only one who calls him KK, but go ahead.
Keith Kelleher, great guy. Yes, we should bring him back. He's unapologetic lefty. God bless him. God bless his union for sponsoring my show. All right, Keith Kelleher, thank you very much. Jacob Kaplan, thank you very much. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton. He's back home in Alton right now, ladies and gentlemen. When this show is over, you know what he's going to do? He's going to go fishing because that's what they do in Alton.
Busted. How'd you know?
And he's going to chop some wood. I'm an Alton guy. He's going to have a lot of fun.
You know me so well.
You know what he's going to do, ladies and gentlemen? Forget that fishing. Forget that wood chopping. He's going to go track down that Cookie Man in St. Louis that he loves so much. Hey, Cookie Man. That's what he's going to do. The magical Cookie Man. Anyway, I want to thank the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. And back home in Alton, as Keith Kelleher will tell you, they call him Dr. D. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
My name is Dennis. Remember, you can download previous Ben Jarofsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, so much more. ChicagoReader.com or wherever else you download podcasts. You can always send us an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com. Leave us a comment. There's a good chance we'll read it on the program. You can reach us on social media at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show. And you can call us 708-658-4788. 708-658-4788. Call the Ben Jarofsky Show, leave us a voicemail, and we will play that voicemail on the program. I mean, if you're not crazy or like cursing like a madman. All right, see you tomorrow.
I'm not a doctor.
I won't just turn the car around. I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to kick you out, and I'm going to make you walk home.
Don't believe me? Don't believe me?
I won't just turn the car around.
I'm not a doctor.